Paisley, who's died at the age of 77. No one in the history of English football can match his record of winning 20 trophies as manager of Liverpool. Terry Venables said he was the architect of one of the finest teams in modern European football. And Kevin Keegan said everyone who'd met Paisley had total respect for his honesty and integrity.
Bob Paisley's connection with the club goes back more than half a century. He played for them, managed them, and finally stepped up to the director's box. But it's his 9 years in charge as manager for which he'll be best remembered. Under his leadership, Liverpool won 6 league titles and 3 league cups. They became giants on the wider stage, claiming 3 European Cups, a UEFA Cup and a European Super Cup. Paisley also steered Liverpool to 6 Charity Shield wins, the only footballing prize to escape him, the FA Cup. This report from George Gavin.
Liverpool is in mourning for one of its most loved adopted sons. Bob Paisley, a modest Geordie, had made Liverpool FC his life's work. After succeeding Bill Shankly, he fine-tuned the Liverpool machine into the most feared team in England and Europe. Everyone who touched him learnt more about football and about life.
The most successful manager of all time. A very modest man who didn't really seek the limelight. Loved his football, very intelligent, very knowledgeable about it. And carried on the work of Bill Shankly with his own personality. And as I say, you talk about legends, Bob has got to be one of them.
He was gentle till you upset him. You've got to have discipline in football, haven't you? But you've also got to have humour, and he'd both. And as I say, everybody that played for him loved him, and everybody respected him. And it's just a sad day, really, for everybody that's played under him or with him. And it's more sad for Jesse and the family.
The record speaks for itself, really. 13 major trophies in 9 seasons here at Liverpool Football Club. Quite phenomenal. I think there's another record as well, which I think there won't be many people could have possibly surpassed. Over 50 years at one football club.
Everybody associated with Liverpool Football Club, as a player or as a fan, it means a great deal to all of us. You know, Bill Shankly started the greatness of Liverpool Football Club, but Bob Paisley actually took it on and actually won more trophies than Bill Shankly did. So it'd be a sad loss to everybody. I know he's not been too well in the last couple of years. He's had his problems with his health, and it's a real sad loss. And all our thoughts are with his family at the moment.
Bill Shankly founded the dynasty, but it was his right-hand man, Bob Paisley, who turned it into an empire. The 1974 FA Cup final was Shankly's swan song. He built a team to conquer England, but Europe had proved to be an elusive dream. Paisley was at first reluctant to take over, but he was persuaded the club needed continuity. And there was no one better to provide that, having been at the club since 1939, first as a player, then as a member of the famous Anfield boot room. Liverpool's rise in the 60s was achieved by the likes of Ian Callaghan, Roger Hunt, Ian St John, Tommy Smith and Emlyn Hughes. Paisley coached them all. The League Championship and the FA Cup came to Anfield, with Paisley joined on the staff by Joe Fagan, another future Liverpool manager. Paisley could spot a player, and Shankly relied on his judgment. John Toshack, just one of the many stars who fueled the fires of success. Paisley, though, was always the cool head, full of down-to-earth common sense. He failed to win a trophy in his first year in charge, but from then on, he couldn't stop winning. One of his masterstrokes was turning Greg Kennedy into a creative midfield player. He inherited Kevin Keegan, and then replaced him with another legend in Kenny Dalglish. Liverpool just kept on winning. But the pinnacle of Paisley's success came in the European Cup. Shankly had always regretted his failure to win it. Paisley made up for that when Liverpool lifted the ultimate prize in 1977. They would go on to repeat the dose as the trophies kept on coming. But no one will forget that first success. The celebrations went on long and hard, and it was Bob Paisley who took the credit with the players and the fans.
Bob Paisley, who's died after a long illness. We've been speaking to two former Liverpool players who knew Paisley better than most, Mark Lawrenson and Phil Thompson. I asked Thompson, a former captain of Liverpool, how people in the city had reacted to the news.
Well, everybody's very, very sad, stunned. You know, Bob Paisley going. It's a frightening thing. He was part and parcel, along with Bill Shankly, of putting Liverpool on the map football-wise, to taking us to some heady heights, winning the European Cup and all the other trophies.
I mean, he was known, wasn't he, as Uncle Bob, but how did the people within Liverpool regard him?
Well, it was a strange thing with Bob, because, as everybody knows, when he was sort of assistant with Bill Shankly, Shanks was always the motivator, the one who went round giving the people pats on the back. You needed somebody there to bring them down, and that was Bob's way. He more or less went out of his way to make it very difficult and to sort of get people's backs up, to make them go out there and play properly. He was a very, very clever man, very knowledgeable about his football.
And he didn't look remotely like a football manager, did he, Phil? Did he do things differently?
Not if you look at today's standard, the way everything's sort of finely cut suits and everything. You know, Bob just had a smoker jacket on, and to say he'd done things differently, he'd done things in his own way, the way Bill Shankly did, tampered little things to even better the football club. But, you know, Bob, you always remember him, he was nothing great for reporters to talk to. He found it very difficult to converse with people. But Bob, in his own way, I think if you spoke to him, you knew of his knowledge of the game, and if you put it into the way we did, out onto a football pitch, everything seemed to come right.
Was there a hard side to him at all, Phil? If people needed disciplining, was he able to do that?
Very much so. As I say, everybody, Uncle Bob was the name and everything. He was a very humble man and everything. But dear me, he'd come down on you very, very hard. Bob, in his own way, made things enjoyable for all the players. And obviously rumours went around of how players misbehaved themselves and everything. But Bob would never come down on you too hard until it affected your football. And once it affected your football, that means it affected Liverpool Football Club. And he would come down as hard on you as anybody else.
OK, Phil, thanks very much indeed.
Well, earlier we were joined by another Paisley old boy, Mark Lawrenson. I asked Mark what he first thought of the man who took him to Anfield from Brighton in the early 1980s.
Well, it wasn't the man I expected to find, certainly, Dominic. And, you know, the night I signed, it was very, very late by the time I got back to Anfield, and I had a sort of medical, sort of is the only word you could describe it, and I got taken to the hotel to come back in the morning, and Bob said to me, I'll pick you up in the morning from the Adelphi Hotel at 9:30, so I was up very, very early, as you can imagine. Never really slept all night anyway, boyhood dream to go and sign for Liverpool, and I was like, shirt, suit and tie, I know you find that surprising, but I was, and he turned up in his sponsored car, in his club car, and he had an old cardigan on with holes in it. He had slippers on. And I couldn't believe it. There was this guy, you know, it was just like your granddad in charge of the team. There was this guy possibly in charge of the best team in Europe at that time, and he turned up for me. I was a record signing as well also. And he'd smashed the record to sign me. And he turned, I couldn't believe it. It was almost like a tramp off the street. It was amazing. But he just loved his football.
It's said that he was actually reluctant to take the job and actually asked Bill Shankly to stay on at one stage.
Yeah, I think that's true, and you certainly got that impression from him. But as Phil Thompson rightly says, his knowledge of football was second to nobody. And he was also very, very good at spotting players who he thought would eventually be injured because they'd have a different or a difficult running style and things like that. But he was an amazing man, he really was. And I mean, some of the things he would say to you, he'd never finish his sentence, you know. And he'd be left wondering half the time, what was he on about? But he was very, very clever at making you ask yourself the question, were you playing well enough in the side every week? I think, as Phil said also, the fact that, you know, Phil said he'd come down very hard on you, but he'd come down in a way that he'd leave you out the team. And at that time, if you left out the team, you never got back in it.
I don't know how valid it is, Mark, but people will always try and assess him in his standing in the game. Where would you place him? Is he the greatest English football manager?
Oh, I don't know if he's